No one came to my birthday party. That was the story of my life for many years of my adolescence. I used to try and make up excuses. Why? My birthday was too close to Christmas, no one was in town, it's not convenient for other parents. But the fact still remained that I spent more than one birthday hiding my tears from my parents about the fact that no one came to my birthday party. When I think about this part of my life and reflect on one of my side characters in my online graphic novel, Autumn, I can't help but wonder if I inserted a bit of my loneliness from those difficult middle school and early high school years into her character. If I am leaning on those feelings of being an outsider and isolated when it comes to the beginning of Autumn's character arc, which, let's face it, I totally am, then I can't be too certain my tumultuous middle school and early high school years were an unnecessary struggle. But before I go on, let's have introductions. Hi, my name is Tiara, and here on this channel, I talk about the stars and struggles of creating the Lost Land Sage, my online graphic novel, while giving online creatives advice to create their own big projects, solo and from scratch. Welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Now, when I look back on the quiet hours waiting for an "I'll be there soon" text or even a "I can't make it" update on my birthday, I see a reflection staring back at me that looks a lot like Autumn. Even if you've never made art at all, I'm sure some of you have felt the weight of being unseen, and that is what Autumn's story is about. When Autumn left the Golden Coven and their territory, she came to the Greenery territory in pursuit of a better life. She saw the respect that being a coven witch grants across the land of Tourmaline, so in a place where no one knew her history, Autumn set out to make a coven witch of herself. Unfortunately, her physical prowess and aptitude for defensive magic made her another useful tool in the coven's belt. At least in Head Doran's eyes. So when Autumn came to Greenery Coven with an unorthodox request to join the coven, Doran was happy to comply. Unfortunately, no one likes a tax collector, or worse, a debt collector, and that's what Autumn became. Someone to be feared, avoided, and to hurry off your doorstep. Autumn was just seeking normalcy, seeking a home. All she got was a new place where people can't stand to have her around. It's hard for me to admit that a lot of Autumn's starting place in the story of the Lost Land Sage reflects a lot of my own experiences. Growing up, and even all the way up until my mid-20s, I've always felt like an outsider and an overwhelming amount of loneliness. Believe it or not, I am not a yellow, faceless character in real life. No, in real life, I am Black, I am American, and I am a woman. Born and raised in Detroit for the first 18 years of my life. And I always was the odd one out. I was too skinny or too flat. I talked white. I acted white. I was weird and nerdy and quiet. I was too goofy or too nice. I was too honest and I acted too strange or dressed too weird. I wore my hair in a low ponytail, but high ponytails looked better. I wore my hair in a high ponytail, but straight hair looked better. Save for a couple of exceptions, I never had any friends. And the friends I did make, I never let get too close because somehow I was never good enough. And therein lies the loneliness problem. I'm sure someone out there can relate to this feeling. No one truly knows me, so I have no one who is truly my friend. But I can't let anyone know me because then no one will like me and I would have no friends. And friends who only know the me that I let them see is better than having no friends at all. Yep, That was me, and that is Autumn. I don't mean to make anyone watching sad, but that's reality. This reality was a sense of shame for so long, but as I get closer to 30 and my life looks a lot different than it did when I was 20, I now feel like this experience, one I felt was isolated and world-ending, is sadly, relatable, and surprisingly, gratefully, fuel for my art. Art that speaks to reality, as sad as it may be. Speaking of reality, humor in all forms became a coat of armor as I struggled with my lonely reality. And that also is reflected in Autumn's character. Autumn's humor in Chapter 4 of The Lost Land Sage, which is currently being published on WEBTOON and Comic Fury every other Sunday, is, admittedly, uncomfortable, weird, and probably funny only to her. There's a thin veil of reality behind every, quote, joke, end quote. You're trying to get rid of me already? It's what she prompts Wisteria, and it's just a joke in her eyes, but it's a reality she's all too familiar with. I think as the story of the Lost Land Sage continues, it will be interesting to explore what happens when this armor is removed and the guard of a jaded and lonely woman is let down. When the fears of vulnerability are acknowledged and sat with. This is the crux of Autumn's character and how I'm using my own personal struggles to fuel this creativity. My goal is that you'll leave this video with a mindset shift for what artblock is, and for the rest of this video, my aim is to explore the connection between hardships of creatives and how these perceived struggles can actually be turned into strengths. At least when it comes to creating art. For everything else, I suggest therapy. So, how do you grant yourself the permission to make something that may be imperfect, but is deeply honest? I read something last week from the book Steal Like an Artist. Paraphrasing what the author said, when I give advice to someone, I'm just sharing what I wish I was told at that time. I think this can be tied to sharing uncomfortable and vulnerable truths through art. When I share something vulnerable, I'm not giving advice necessarily, but I am giving someone else a map through a feeling or experience I once got lost in. Through speaking with online friends, I've come to realize that a lot of my isolated and lonely struggles as a growing young creative were not so isolated. Many people, whether you're an artist, musician, writer, game developer, general creative, or just a person, all share the same issues. So if you were listening to the early part of this video and feeling a little too seen, I promise you, you are not alone. And that's why art that is maybe imperfect but always honest is so important. Sometimes the message is more important than the means in which it is conveyed. We humans are such social creatures, so to see a piece of media or hear a piece of music or read a piece of literature and feel seen is special. Your song that maybe feels too personal to share may be just what a young person on the other side of the nation needs to hear to feel like they aren't so alone. I remember hearing songs by Paramore and feeling so seen. Or as a schizophrenic, I hear songs by 21 Pilots now, and I feel laid on a table for viewing by Tyler Joseph's lyrics. And it's a good thing. Once I find other people who like Paramore or 21 Pilots, I know I found a community of people who are like me. That's why it's so cool to have a community around any intellectual property. It's basically a bat signal of we're all screwed up in the same way. So let's fangirl about this new episode of Gravity Falls. Boom. Gravity Falls video quota confirmed. We can continue. Outside of building community, there is the tortured artist aspect of creativity. Or at least we call it tortured artists, but maybe these artists weren't tormented by creation. Maybe they were making art to survive their realities. To be creative is to be insane, traumatized, and strange. That's the general narrative when it comes to many great artists of our generation and generations long past. I think there's a bit of truth to this understanding, but maybe not in the way it's proposed. I think creativity is an outlet for the insane, traumatized, and strange folks of a population, not a prerequisite. A picture doesn't need language to be understood. A look of anguish is universal. Betrayal can easily be spotted, and trauma is revealed in brushstrokes. When it feels like you can't speak the right words to let others know how you feel or what you're experiencing or to help yourself be understood, art can be your bridge or your outlet. I can't tell you why I pushed people away even though I was lonely, but maybe I can show you. So, yes, many great creatives were crazy, and I speculate they were creative because they were crazy, not crazy due to their creativity. Now, this is not an invitation to seek out something that makes you mentally different. We need no fake Tourette's in the chat, please, and thank you very much. But to be frank, you probably already have something in your life that can fuel your creativity while keeping your ear intact. Because it's all of our first time here on Earth, including the authority figures in your life, peers, enemies, and friends. So we all have messed up in one way or another, and that has definitely affected you and me and many, many others. And if not human experience that has left you with room for creative growth, definitely life experience. I will not be diving too deep here, but I'm sure you get what I mean. This idea of struggles being a fuel for creativity makes me wonder about art blocks. Getting out and about is often preached as a solution to art block. Experience the world and the ideas will flow. How often do we think that creative blocks are just a mirror of unresolved internal conflicts or weights? I think art blocks are mental pauses. Sometimes it isn't that your mind is empty or blocked, but that it's too full of things you haven't yet resolved. What if the reason you're not able to complete a full manuscript isn't because you're running out of juice or hitting a wall? What if you can't write an end to the story because the conflict that caused the spark that created the story hasn't reached a real-life conclusion? What if you can't paint any more of a certain original character because that character's conception no longer has relevance in your life? I think there's so much validity in this idea, and I think there's another side to this coin we're pondering, so let's flip it. Is this why when we see a piece of media that is an obvious cash grab, we say it has no soul? Why a movie can hit all the right plot points, or a piece of generated slop can have all the right lines? I use the word right here extremely loosely, but it still feels robotic and devoid of life. There is no spark in these media because there was no struggle, issue, or conflict or insanity that struck life into the form. That's why AI will never be able to produce art, because art requires struggle, and struggle requires being human. Your humanity, your hardships, as you create, give your art soul, life, and purpose. Sets you apart from a manufactured copy or a beat-by-beat production. The highs of life make it worth living, and the lows make art worth creating or even consuming. So now the coin of creativity spins in the air, and how it lands is up to you. It can land on the side of templated structure with probable means of success, Disney, or it can land on the side of raw, real, uncomfortable truth. Not perfect and probably not polished, but human. Or in my case, autumn. The start of Autumn's turning point in The Lost Land Sage comes right at the end of chapter 4. Autumn sees herself in someone else's eyes, and she's done. She literally and metaphorically walks away from this view of herself. For anyone who feels attached to Autumn's story after this video, be sure to tune in to The Lost Land Sage every other Sunday. And I promise, her story has a happy ending. At minimum, Autumn has a happy ending. Just like Autumn's start is a reflection of my past hurt, her end will be a reflection of my current emotions. Because I finally feel like I belong. I had friends that came to my birthday party when I turned 26, and after everyone went home, I cried tears of joy in the arms of someone who made me realize what home feels like. Thanks so much for sticking this out with me, guys. If you like this video, please remember to like the video, share it with a friend, and comment literally anything. I do not care. If you choose to subscribe, remember to ring the notification bell so my videos don't get lost in that subscription feed you never check. Yeah, I see you, home feet hustlers. Like I said earlier, I publish 2 new pages of The Lost Land Sage every other Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so next Sunday, 2 new pages will be available on Comic Fury and WEBTOON for your reading pleasures. Both are linked in the description. If you'd like to support The Lost Land Sage, my KoFi is also down there in the description. Members get Discord access, early pages, digital downloads, and free followers are going to get blog posts eventually. Be on the lookout for the dub of the first 4 chapters of The Lost Land Sage, which is set to come out December 1st. And I believe that is all I have to say. So the only thing left for me to say is to stay curious and suffer the consequences. See y'all next time. Bye.